Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. I'm Rob Chang, and once a month, our AOAUK team will bring you some monthly transit. There is Mondi and Marcus. Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
But today's like a little bit quiet or something, just because we are in different time zone, and he's like nearly midnight. So I just lower my voice, not like usual. I would like, oh. So something I just feel like weird, and you guys' voice is very quiet. So how's everyone? How's things in another end of the world?
Good, I think.
Good. Monday?
Yeah, all's good with me. Yeah, I think so. It's winter is, you can see there's some of the signs where winter is giving way into spring, which is always a lovely time of year.
Yeah, got one month to go before. I love spring. It's my favorite time of year. So
yes,
yeah, I love, just like you can see the bulbs just starting to come up.
I can't wait to go back to see my flowers.
We've got a few in the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a few coming up in our garden.
So, well, Monty, are you at this point? What are you doing? What is keep you busy?
Myself, yeah, I'm giving a talk for the Scottish Astrological Association on Wednesday next week, the 8th of February. Online. I'm not going up to Scotland, which is a shame, but never mind. So yeah, that's an online talk, which will be good. It's about Pluto in Aquarius, which is obviously going to be a really big topic. Yeah, so there's that, and there's working on a big writing project at the moment. Can't say too much. It involves astrology, but it's not just about astrology. So that's keeping me busy. Yeah. And I've been feeding the birds, and basically I put loads of bird food out, and I sit there at my desk trying to write. And basically just end up just watching the birds and the squirrels all day, which is a rather nice way to spend the day, but not very productive.
How about Marcus?
Yeah, no, that all sounds brilliant, Mandy. I've got one talk coming up, but it might be a bit too late for this podcast, because that's tomorrow on Saturday. It's at Birmingham Astrology Group. I'm just doing a little talk for them. But then the big thing I've got coming up is a course for Kepler College online.
Wow.
Starting next week. Thanks, on Saturday the 11th, which is on decumbiture and medical, sort of how to do prognosis in medical astrology. So if anybody's interested in that, or maybe send you the details, Rod, or something. But
yeah, I heard this topic before, and I highly recommend, if you are interested in Marcus the Decumbiture course, please join him, because it's amazing, fantastic. He will not let you down. Well, it's come to my turn, and there are a few things. First is AOA UK on the 25th of February. We have the last talk of Saturn in Pisces and the Pluto in Aquarius talk, and this time we have Christine Skinner and Liam McCarthy, and they are joined together talking about the Saturn in Pisces and the Pluto in Aquarius in the financial side. And I think also Liam will talk about the how we deal with the Pluto in Aquarius, because it's such a big topic. Monday already talked in last year, and also you're going to talk in this Scottish Astrology Class group. And on the 13th of March, I will talk to Lodge. I will talk about the 12th house. And I just have a record a podcast with Anna Isabel. It was quite interesting. It's the same as at midnight, and I was like, talking like that, keep my voice down or something. Well, okay, so today, I know that you guys can't wait to hear we talking about the monthly transit. Usually, we will focus on the lunation chart, especially the full moon and the new moon. So very soon, we're going to have a Leo full moon, and I think this full moon, I'm really curious about what they're going to bring to us. So maybe I should show the chart and invite you guys to start to make comment. Okay, here we are. So this one is new moon. Sorry.
Right.
Here we are. Brilliant. So this one is the full moon chart. Is on the 5th of February, and for UK time is 1828. We got sun and moon The sun in 16 degree of Aquarius, the moon is 16 degree of Leo, and they both square Uranus on 15 degrees Taurus. Oh, wow. Mondi? Should we?
Yeah, so another full moon we have one every month, of course. And as we know, and as we said before, full moon tends to be a high energy time. It's a fullness, it's a culmination, it's the peak of the lunar cycle, the monthly lunar cycle. And under the full moon, you just have to look at the sky and see the brightness of a full moon. So when there's no clouds, and it's when things come into the fullness of the light, when you can see, when things become clearer, not just physically in the sky, but because, of course, astrology is a symbolic subject. Astrology works, but it works on the symbolic level. So symbolically, it's when things can be exposed, things can come to the surface, things can be seen. You know, there's the cliche in astrology that under a new moon, if you want to get away with something and not be seen and not be found out, do it under the new moon, when it's the dark moon. If you want to be exposed and found out for the good, or for the good, if you do want to be exposed and found out, you want to be seen, do it on the full moon or just before the full moon. Obviously, if you want to get away with something that you shouldn't do, kind of avoid the full moon. And this full moon it's in Leo, as Rod said, the moon is in Leo, so it's a fixed energy, and that fixed energy gets all the more kind of highlighted by a square from Uranus, which is in the fixed sign of Taurus. And Uranus, even in Taurus, even in a fixed sign, kind of talks about excitement and shocks and potentially breakthroughs, potentially even breakups in some kind of way. So fixed signs don't like change, but change, shocks can kind of come on this high energy potentially because of Uranus being that full moon. So if you'd like change and excitement, it's probably going to be easier and more fun. It can be quite a fun energy, but it can also be a little bit kind of, take you by surprise and feel a bit uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable energy, right?
Yeah.
What do you think,
yeah, Marcus.
No, just great. I think just to add to that, I think because it's a Leo Aquarius full moon, it's quite an extroverted full moon, quite a socially active full moon potentially. So with the square to Uranus there might be some sort of disruption to sort of like social plans, or some sort of unplanned changes that have to be made, let's say. So say you'd had some fairly well-established plans for your sort of social calendar or what you were going to be doing. There might be some spanner thrown in from work, or some practical surprise that you hadn't really thought about that sort of disrupts things a bit. And that's usually that sort of fixed, that square to Uranus there that you were talking about, Mondi. And then the other bit here is that the Mars in Gemini is sort of throwing friendly aspects to that full moon. So Mars in Gemini is just sort of socially busy. Like, I mean, Mars has been in Gemini since the dawn of time now, it feels, for the past like 4 months or so. It's going to be in there for another month or so. But it's kind of just, it's emphasizing the socially busy aspect of this full moon, I think, and maybe sort of socially potentially expensive aspect of this full moon. So it could be socially expensive in the sense that you have some things to do which you didn't expect to have to do, some extra work or communications, or just jobs to do with communication that you perhaps didn't expect to have to do, or just some unexpected things. And then the final thing I'd like to say is just we've got a Venus-Mars square that's separating. And that's really key. That, to get me, sort of is suggesting that there's some pleasures or some things that perhaps you'd wanted to do have to be, there's a sort of clash between sort of pleasure and work here. It's like you maybe, and this, because the Mars is the one that's plugging into the full moon, I think you're going to have to do some work that maybe you didn't expect to have to do and forego the pleasure a little bit, or there might be a little bit of a clash between the two, something like that. That's the way I see it.
Mondi, how do you see this setup of Mars Venus square?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Marcus said. Totally agree with what Marcus said. Brilliant analysis. And to kind of allude to what you were saying, Marcus, as well, under the excitement or disruption of this full moon, as we've talked about, and that Mars-Venus square, Mars-Venus also takes us straight into the theme of relationships, right? Friendship. So that's one thing to think about. So it's probably best under the excitement of this full moon not to make too many commitments that you may not be able to keep going forward when things change, because we're in really interesting energy at the moment. I think we're in a forward moving energy, because now all the outer planets, well, all the planets that can possibly go retrograde are yeah, they're all going direct. Some of them are still moving quite slowly, but they're speeding up, slowly speeding up. So we're in a kind of feeling of forward momentum after quite a long period where we felt we'd been kind of held back and things weren't quite happening. So this forward momentum could be quite good for the full moon energy if you use it. But the full moon energy, obviously, and that square, the sun and moon from Uranus, is a fleeting thing. There are obviously other aspects that are going on that are longer term, but we're also getting a little bit of a break from, for example, the Saturn Uranus square that's been going for quite a long time.
Yes.
Oh yes,
pretty much over with now. Although, yeah, yeah, thank goodness. And there's almost like things are speeding up, but they're not speeding up too much. Things are moving forward, but not moving up too much, and we're almost in a kind of a waiting area at the moment.
Yeah,
we just talked about this briefly before we came on air. We're going to talk about some of these things next month's podcast. Saturn going into Pisces and Pluto going into Aquarius, and obviously some of us talks on these subjects as well, which I just mentioned. So we're in this kind of almost holding room pattern, and in that holding room pattern, perhaps it's time to play for a little bit. It's a Leo full moon. Leo likes to play. Perhaps it's time to play and get a little bit creative, especially while Venus, going back to Venus, while Venus is in the creative, imaginative sign of Pisces, doing a nice square. I mean, squares get a bad rep, and they are quite difficult sometimes, but they do give you energy. Squares like to be acted upon. So maybe put a little bit of creative energy into something and play and yourself a little bit. And watch out for Uranus. Some people love Uranus. I don't mind Uranus.
I noticed that Venus. I noticed that Venus is sextile Uranus. So there is, like you say, like Mondi said, is a play mode. People get, maybe like you say, we are in the waiting room period that people is like maybe you anticipate like, oh, what's going to happen, and they get quite excited. Oh, I'm going to, but when you see the next new moon, that'll be fun. That's totally another energy, but we will talk about that very soon. But before we move to the new moon chart, anything what we want to add in for this full moon chart?
No, I just think that was really interesting. Sort of like we've come to a sort of an analysis of that, and there's a couple of extra elements I'd bung in just for building on that the Venus Mars square. Venus is on top, so that kind of like puts the pleasure slightly above the work aspect here. So I do think this could be some spanner in the works of some sort, socially or work wise, and the answer to that is going to have to be some kind of social work. You're going to have to put your energy into some sort of communications thing. The energy has to go to Mars, because Mars is the one that's connecting to the full moon for me. But the Venus on top of the Mars in traditional astrology, that would be Venus and Mars squaring. You count which one's in the 10th sign from the other, if that makes sense. So Venus is in the 10th sign. Venus in Pisces is in the 10th. Pisces is the 10th sign from Gemini, so it's like an overcoming square. So that just means that pleasure comes out on top in this case. So I think that might emphasize what you were saying, Rod, about the and Mandy, about the Venus Uranus sextile, just pulling it in there, that this isn't just all work and no play. It's just kind of like whichever you'd planned to do, you might have to change your plans a little bit, but whatever. And then I just wanted to throw in I like my lunar mansions. I really love the lunar mansion, because this lunar mansion, the moon in Leo at this full moon, is traditionally, there's some keywords about lordship and reverence and awe and worship, but basically this is a mansion of gaining sort of power and respect and sort of stepping out and sort of things sort of coming to a culmination or something. It says, now is not the time to shrink from confrontation or hide in fear. Courage and boldness are called for and will carry the day. And it's good for this mansion was used traditionally for elections to rescue captives, besieging cities, ordering of trade and profiting from it, for travelers to journey safe and unharmed, to make buildings firm and stable, and to increase the wealth of allies. All of that is just to say, I think, that really corroborates the fact that this is a very social full moon. It's a very active time. So what you were saying, Mandy, about things starting to move forward, this is a forward moving time. And if you just do take action, if things do take a bit of a turn and surprise you in some way, and the surprise, as you said, Mandy, needn't be awful. Uranus is disruptive, but not necessarily destructive. It very much depends. So, but just take what that's saying to me is take it in stride, do what needs to be done, and the results should be quite positive. So
it's pretty.
What you said, because I love what you said about Mars in Leo, the lunar mansion, talking about courage, and of course courage is a very leonine word, and courage to me means that you might be a little bit afraid of something, but you do it anyway. You find the courage out of fear. And that's very different from that kind of risk-taking bravery and ego-based courage. It's kind of a very not, so that's maybe another sort of thing. Another bit.
I like that.
Another bit of energy to think about around.
And
I've seen that there's.
No, go for it. Sorry, Mandy.
No, I was just going to change topic a little bit. So sorry if I interrupted, if you're going to say something else.
Just one more thing, just on the basis of that, it kind of fits with saying about the courage, because the sun being in Aquarius and Mars in Gemini, they're both air signs. So it's kind of like the way that the courage could be shown here is sort of like socially or intellectually. It's like manifesting the courage in a social setting or in the concept or in just like it's sort of mentally doing, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but sort of like it's not necessarily that you need to do something. It's more like the way you think about something. It's like about having the courage to be your own person and to make the changes that need to be made and to adjust yourself mentally to whatever situation arises. Something like that, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Which brings us to that Pluto, that Mercury-Pluto conjunction there. Mercury, that's deep thinking, and that sort of can be quite heavy-handed, can't it? Mercury Pluto, heavy-handed both obviously physically, because Mercury is about in some ways, but also heavy-handed in terms of the way you do things and the way you communicate. And authority, I think, comes under Capricorn, with Pluto and Capricorn. It'd be interesting to see, actually, whenever I see Mercury with a slow-moving planet in a chart like this, I always think, in a transiting chart like this, I always think, watch out for things in the news. What's going to come out next?
We've
had a lot of allegations for politicians in the UK. Bullying. We've had a lot of scapegoating and making excuses. I think that speaks into that conjunction. So when we have full moon, more things come out. So watch the news and see what comes out.
And also I've been very interested because, like, obviously Mercury's been doing its retro all in Capricorn, and from a trad perspective, you've got Mars. Well, from modern perspective too, Mars in Gemini, Mercury in Capricorn have an interesting generosity there, because Mars is in Mercury's own sign, and Mercury is in Mars's exaltation, so they will support each other's agendas even though there's no direct connection between them. So I totally agree. In conjunction with Pluto, that sort of taboo, exposing things, digging up kind of the kinds of communications or inciting the kinds of conversations that people would prefer were not revealed, is going to be coming up. So
to be honest, I think I would add it a little bit, because this Mercury is sextile with Neptune. So while the news comes out, there still are some funny things there. They will kind of, but there is this what do we call it, a smoking gun or something, you know, try to make things a little bit messy and say, no, I'm not sure, or you know, the things is a
Yeah,
little bit.
there might be a little bit of unclarity or
Yeah, yeah,
obscuration, or
yeah. It's like, did he really do it, or the things is like this, or I'm not sure about this news. So
I'm thinking of the word allegations here.
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
And
yeah.
wanting to escape the uncomfortable truths as well, I think is another
Yeah.
phrase that kind of fits that, because Mercury, Neptune likes escapism, and it also likes to cover up
Yes.
as well. And Pluto
Yeah.
likes to cover up, but in a different way. Pluto likes to bury things deep, whereas
Yeah.
Neptune likes to obscure things.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, and we will see what happened when the you know, when the next things comes out. So should we move to the new moon on the 20th of February?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are. Because the first when we prepare this recording is quite interesting. Marcus said, I don't like this chart.
I don't like it very much at all. I mean, should I start and say
please.
why I don't like it? Having just cast it's, I'm really not liking this chart for the UK, just to be clear, not universally, just because this is the chart for London, and as you can see, Saturn is right on the ascendant, and Mars is pretty much right on the IC. So you've got both of the trickier planets bang on the angle. So that just emphasizes for this next month, lunar month, more difficulties. Like, I mean, that can show up in various ways. I mean, Saturn is quite strong on the ascendant, so it means like for that month maybe the people of the country are feeling okay, but it's just like there's a feeling of more confinement and pressure and restriction. So maybe that's because with Mars on the IC, maybe, I don't know, there's loads of volatility in the housing market or something. Maybe it's because people have, I don't know what's going on there, but it's a feeling of like, I don't know what, because I'm thinking fourth house could be housing, it's domestic stuff, it's to do with home and family and the actual land itself. So there might be disputes over some of these things in some way, but generally it's that's what the rest of the chart for the world. I don't think it's a bad month for the whole world. I just think a somewhat trickier month for the UK.
Well, the first things I noticed was like, although I'm Taiwan, but I read some news about something really happening in the house market, and I think house prices coming down a bit, and also people worry about the mortgage is going up again, and that would really, you know, showing that Mars in the fourth house, maybe, I don't know, maybe they try to encourage people or the house mortgage or so, you know, that would be very interesting. Somehow, I know, in the traditional view for Marcus, this is Saturn in 28° in Aquarius doesn't really count as a conjunction with the new moon, right? But in the traditional view. But for me, it's like you say this is the Saturn on the angle is about the UK, but what I feel like universally, the Saturn in my view is kind of a conjunct with new moon, so it brings in a different sign. So people may not notice it, but there is a shadow there. There is a shadow there. People are kind of preoccupied or a little bit, you know, a little bit worried about. I don't know how about you, Mondi? How you see this chart?
Yeah, well, there you've got the new moon there. Obviously, it's going to be in different houses for different places, but that's a Saturn Neptune sandwich, isn't it? The full moon, the new moon is in a Saturn Neptune.
Nobody wants a Saturn Neptune sandwich.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's kind of a bit moist. It's a bit too moist, and it's also a bit gritty and a bit sandy, right? You wouldn't really fancy eating that. That means Saturn Neptune aren't in any kind of aspect at all. They aren't even in any sort of reception, unless I've missed something, Marcus. So we can't sort of put them in an aspect, but you know, if you put that, they are both widely aspected at either end of that new moon. And Saturn and Neptune together tends to dissolve boundaries. It can kind of make structures a little bit wobbly. We've talked about structure in terms of the housing market. Saturn is things that are very tangible. So houses and property is something that's very tangible. And certainly in this country, in the UK, there's been a long history of property, bricks and mortar. You know, Saturn is very much bricks and mortar of being an investment. And maybe people will start to wonder about their investments, whether it's worth it, whether they can still afford it, whether they can afford to buy a house, because as house prices drop, interest rates rise. So it's making it harder for people, for example, to get a mortgage or to keep paying a mortgage because of interest. But that's just, as I say, we're probably being quite UK centric in that. But the new moon, of course, any new moon is a new beginning, right? And then again, to repeat that a lunation, a new moon, it happens every month. So it's kind of fleeting energy, but it's about planting seeds. But you're planting seeds in the dark. You know, you make people say start something on the new moon. No, not necessarily, but start the planning and start planting the seeds.
Yeah.
And when you plant a seed in the soil, I'm getting all symbolic now, but when you plant a seed in the soil, you don't know what's going to come up necessarily, or when it's come up, or how it's going to come up, until really you start to get to the square of the sun and the moon, the first quarter moon. So it's a time really to start planning, start thinking when you've got sort of Neptune there and Saturn there. Neptune, of course, is very receptive. It's quite imaginative. It's dreaming. It's a dreamy sort of idea. In your dreams, you know, you can think, Neptune might want to do something into this new moon that's like really imaginative and really kind of out there, and then Saturn might turn around and go, oh yeah, in your dreams, you know, that's kind of a little, you know, that kind of thing. So it's kind of finding that balance really between reality and, I'm not going to say fantasy, but more intuition and sensitivity and imagination, that kind of thing. And we talked about Venus in Pisces. You see, Venus is just about to go out of Pisces under this new moon. I don't know what you guys make of that. Venus about to go into Aries.
Yeah. Marcus, what do you think?
Okay, I've got many thoughts, but just something that occurred to me as you were talking there, Mandy. I'll get onto the Venus in a minute because I have something to say about that.
Are you going back to sandwich?
Yes, I want to go back to that delicious, tasty Saturn Neptune sandwich that we were just talking about. I was actually thinking about it from the point of view of, like, when you mentioned that, Mandy, it's an excellent observation. I was just thinking about it from the traditional point of view, you know, the Doriophori or the spear bearers that they talked about in ancient astrology, which is like, if you have the sun or the moon, what planet is in the preceding and the following sign. So what's interesting, in the preceding sign, before this, we've got Saturn in Aquarius, and the following sign, we've got Jupiter in Aries. And interestingly, that Jupiter does have a generosity with the sun in Pisces. That's one of those little generosities. Okay. Aries is the sun's exaltation. Pisces is Jupiter's traditional home. So you've got so the way I'd interpret that is maybe what we're leading with this month is the Saturn in Aquarius, you know, more sort of social restriction. People are worried about stuff. People are like holding on to their things. People want to kind of like lock things down a little bit more. But then maybe there's a move towards the end of the month, towards more, you know, what follows that might be more Jupiter stuff, might be more like, sod this, let's just open things up a bit more, let's do more. So we're starting perhaps with more negative, conservative, and ending with a bit more Nike, just do it kind of vibes, you know, something like that. But and then so that was just a thought. But I do agree about the Saturn Neptune sandwich being a thing. There might be a little bit of the Neptune might be coming in there somehow, in that there might be a tendency for people to be trapped between, as you were suggesting, Mandy, the sort of like the not a rock and a hard place, but a rock and an imaginary place or something, like, you know, there's some I wish I was there, but this is what's going on, or something like that. But
a rock and a soft place,
a rock and a soft place,
or a wet place.
Yes, yeah, a rock and a boggy place or something. But no, I think that the last thing I'd mention was what you're saying about the Venus. This Venus is interesting because, as you said, Manny, she's still exalted, so that's strong Venus traditionally in Pisces with Neptune and on the star Shiat, which is not a great star, to put it mildly. So Venus is really strong, but not happy because she's on this unhappy star and about to lose all her dignity, because she's going to enter Aries, where she is not happy at all. It doesn't mean she can't have some positive effects. Venus is Venus wherever she is, but it's so how does that, I mean, practically we might have a month where there's some stuff about, for example, in the news about high status women and issues with drugs or substance dependency, or issues with high status women sort of having big problems, like either with medication or drugs, I'm thinking, just because the Venus is close to Neptune and it's on this star Shiat, which has this sort of like traditionally sort of slightly tragic overtones thing. And status, just because Venus is exalted in Pisces, so it's like something along those lines, maybe. I don't know, just some thoughts.
I think you said it, because in the traditional astrology, Marcus, Venus is losing, you said Venus is losing she's losing her dignity, and then you kind of described that it might be actually, in some sense, women losing their dignity in some way, or having it taken away from them, potentially.
Yeah, could be. I mean, there is a traditional, I mean, you guys will know Vivian Robson, a book on the fixed stars. He's some of his delineations are a bit hardcore and depressing, to be fair, but I mean, he does talk about I think Venus on Shiat. I'll just look it up, but maybe one of you guys say things while I'm looking it up.
Well, yes. Well, let me add the modern interpretation from the Dr. Brandy Brady. Her interpretation is because this star is in the a leg of the Pegasus. So for her, the interpretation of this star is not 100% totally, bad, but they're more creative, because it's the horse leg which kick the fountain to give inspiration. So from her view, that's inspiration and creative. So that's we can add another layer. We can add another layer on.
Yeah. So it might be, maybe there's sort of creative women or creative artistic people who, it's Robson's traditionally pessimistic and very,
we know that.
He's sort of said Venus on Shiat, evil environment, suffering through own acts, danger of imprisonment or restraint. So I thought that the suffering through own acts is an interesting one. So that might be sort of artistic people or high status women, particularly with, and I'm thinking something to do with drugs or medications, possibly because Neptune involved, and possible loss of status or loss of dignity as a result of that. I mean, there's always some of that going on in the news, I suppose, but it might be featured this month, and maybe this I don't know. You guys have any other thoughts?
What you're just saying, Marcus, has made me think about a thing that's a big thing in the news, about a lot of things about the rights of trans women. And there's a lot about, when you think about one of the things that Pisces is, it could be about his institutions and prisons. There's big rows about whether trans women are allowed in women's prisons, for example. That's a big row going on at the moment. And then there's a kind of, I know people have very strong views about this, but a kind of a less important row about whether trans women should be allowed to use female toilets or not. And that's become a big row, a big story in the news, with very polarized views about what's right and what's wrong.
And this may even fit with our delicious, tasty Saturn-Neptune sandwich theme this month. Do you know what I mean? About because Saturn traditionally rules prisons and imprisonment and conservatism and very hard boundaries between things. It's like you're this or you're that. And Neptune is the opposite. Neptune is like everything is one thing. So we have this month we have the sun and the moon that's kicking things off, stuck between those two planetary body. So I do wonder that it may be there's something that will emerge about that's linked to that sort of theme of archetypal femininity in some way, that is tricky, to say the least.
It's interesting, and it's right at the end of Pisces as well, where things become a lot more intense, so perhaps we can expect,
and it's about to enter Aries, where Venus goes to war. So
yes, and that's more of a I mean, traditionally, obviously, very, very traditionally, Aries is more of a masculine energy, isn't it?
I mean, but you can also see it in terms of just the rulers of the signs. So like obviously in Pisces it's ruled by Jupiter, so it's a much more peaceful sign generally. Aries ruled by Mars, not so peaceful. So yeah.
And that's interesting because Mars is in Gemini, and you've got two sides, and it's a very two-sided argument. You know, it's you're either for it or
polarized.
Polarized. I was listening to a debate on the radio earlier this morning. It was about this is quite an interesting thing. There's a song by Tom Jones, who's Welsh, and it's called Delilah, and they apparently traditionally they sing this song Delilah at Welsh rugby matches. Long tradition of doing it. Now they want to ban the use of that song because Delilah is actually a song about a jealous man who murders his female partner. Basically, they're trying to ban it because it's about domestic abuse and murder, basically. So that kind of speaks. Suddenly just thought about that, and there was a big debate on the LBC this afternoon, earlier this morning, and they were trying to understand why there were such strong and polarized views. Why people were either really strongly on one side of the argument, this is tradition, you're taking away our sort of, our ritual, our song that we associate with our team, with our rugby team. On the other side, we shouldn't be singing any kind of song in that kind of context that's about violent murder.
Fascinating. I think of the words polarized and polemic as being two very Mars in Gemini words. Yeah.
I mean that's just an example. I mean we've got till the 20th of Feb when this moon that might have just passed us by, but
Mondi, I think that
there might be something else.
Mondi, I think what you describe is still Mars in Gemini, and also because Mars at this moment is out of a bond, still out of bond until Sun. I mean,
Mars is going crazy.
In May, still in. I think until May, if I remember, Mars still out of bond. So Mars is a little bit crazy, So this kind of debate, we can hear quite a lot of them. Marcus?
And we're right close to, and right today, as we're recording this on the 3rd of February today, we're very close to that full moon, the previous chart, where Mercury was coming up to Pluto and had that generosity with that Mars. Do you remember?
That's why,
digging up all this stuff, like look at what this is actually about, and then everyone's starting to go crazy about it. So
and the Venus-Mars square, of course, in that chart as well, which very much speaks to what we've just been talking about that song.
That's very interesting.
Totally.
That is very interesting.
Pisces, of course, is music, isn't it, as well?
And art. Venus in Pisces is the consummate artist. Totally, absolutely.
And Mars is sport.
So
we are talking about this. Mars square of Venus.
So this is where we're at now, and then interestingly, it looks like by the time of the next new moon, it'll be kind of that the situation will have shifted a little bit, so things might be a little bit less controversial about information. My camera's going crazy again, so
but Marcus, I don't know about that, because Mercury was with Pluto in the former chart, and now in the new moon chart it will be square to Uranus. More disruption and
yes, that's true. Yes, thank you.
Fun.
We missed that square. Really, I think was it you, Rod, who pointed it out or earlier that square, because it doesn't look like a square in the chart until you actually look, and then they really are. So that could be yeah, that can be like sudden disruptive communications.
Yeah.
So there might be variations on a theme going on there. But I do still, nevertheless, for the world in general, obviously for the UK, I think, because this chart for the month is headlining Saturn and Mars, it looks like it might be headlining tougher topics for the UK in general. But for the world, I think, going back to what you guys were saying about the fact that we lead with Saturn and then end with Jupiter with this month. So I kind of feel like by the end of the month, mind you, Jupiter in Aries isn't exactly you know, lying back with a nice little cup of tea having a chat. It's kind of it can be a bit evangelical about things, but it's also very positive. So it's the month is sort of starting off socially conservative, erring towards repression, and ending up almost with the opposite of like being evangelically enthusiastic about things, but quite positive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And especially as Jupiter is applying to a conjunction with Chiron.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, you're looking for a guru or a mentor, but it's about inner wisdom, though, or spiritual teachings as well, potentially healing, all of that.
And didn't you, Rod, do a piece about Chiron is often associated with minorities and with sort of oppressed groups and stuff like that? So it may be a sort of like opening up of, or some sort of liberatory thing to I don't know.
Possible. It's possible. I think I agree with both of you. This Jupiter conjunct Chiron, and also sextile the Mercury, bring the atmosphere of a good news and the wonderful words. Well, there's both sides of Chiron. In one side, Chiron fixing. So maybe try to make work better. With the Jupiter turn more positive view, because we had enough all the past years, like all the doom or the darkness, and people expecting something. But and then they try to bring out the Mercury Jupiter, try to bring out the good news. Look, this world is still beautiful. This world is still, you don't be so sad. Like what Marcus said, but there under the carpet, there's something there with a Jupiter Chiron, but that doesn't mean it's all bad things. There is something there, but we can still apply the if we believe what we want. Somehow my interpretation of the Jupiter Chiron is with trust and with belief, and with what you want, and you trying to make it happen. But not really like, I don't care about anything, I just want this one. That kind of a crazy energy, but I just try to balance it.
Okay, yeah, I think that's much more positive, Rod. I love that. And it sounds sort of almost like this month there might be more constructive debate altogether,
Yeah.
because we've got Mercury is trining that Mars and sextiling the Jupiter and Chiron, as you say. That sort of sounds like, okay, there'll be some polemics and polarization still going on, and there'll be some, with that Mercury square Uranus, some sort of surprising turns in what is communicated, and maybe there'll be some disruption to communication. But I think that it's a bit more constructive. There might be some stuff that's discussed that's maybe more tending towards helpful in the end, even if the month sort of like starts off with people feeling a little bit squished. I have to mention one final thing. I focus on, which is just, I know I often talk about the generosities, like, that which some modern astrologers call mutual receptions, but I like the generosities when they're not in aspect. I also refer to the opposites, which I call hostilities.
When you have
planets in signs that they don't. So interestingly, in this chart, you've got the new moon obviously in Pisces.
Yeah.
Pisces is traditionally the detriment and fall of Mercury, and Mercury expresses itself much less conventionally in Pisces, and it tends to struggle a bit there. And you've got Mercury in Aquarius, which is the detriment of the sun. So you've kind of got those two planets, Mercury and the sun, are sort of a bit inimical to each other. They're not supporting each other's energies here. So it's kind of like, it feels like for this month, the direction of things that things are going in is sort of not supporting rational debate and conversation, even though that is what people are trying to do. Do you know what I mean? So it's like that sort of flies in the face of what I've just said about that potentially more constructive debate. I think there will be, but it's something about that. The fact that the Sun and Mercury are in hostility to each other at the time this new moon, as they often are at this time of year, by the way. So I don't want to read too much into it. I still think it's going to be more of a constructive debate, but just the fact that Mercury's in the same sign as Saturn and in a hostility or lack of generosity with the Sun, let's say. I mean, any thoughts on how that might be interpreted, guys? I'd need a minute to unpick this because I've probably taken that a step too far, but I do yeah.
No, that's really interesting, and I do use reception a little bit, but not as much as you in the traditional sense. But yeah, that's definitely something to think about. That how is if we go back to the meaning of the general meaning of a new moon, that it's seeding time, it's when you've got new ideas, and Mercury is all about ideas. So think about your ideas. Think about your ideas, because you've got Saturn, which blocks and doubts and fears. Is this a good idea? Is this a great idea? And then Neptune kind of dissolves it. So you might find that you change your mind, which is Mercury square Uranus, on any ideas you come up with on the moon potentially. And opinions as well. Mercury comes into opinions, and a lot of what we've been talking about in the news stories that basically comes down to opinions over what song to sing at the rugby match, opinions over what's appropriate for a trans woman and what's inappropriate for a trans woman. It's all very much in the realm of opinions, and opinions, the risk of going around in circles. Opinions at the moment, we can see very obviously are very polarized.
I just on that sounds brilliant, Mandy. I love that, and that's just sort of made me think the ruler of that moon, the new moon here, is Jupiter. So it's going to tend to go in the direction of Jupiter conjunct that Chiron, like opening things up for minorities. What's the ideal world? What's the way that we can liberate people? What's the way that we can, and getting quite evangelical about that, because it's Jupiter in Aries. It's like, okay, this is what we need to do to liberate things, to move things forward. It's like, it's very much, this is the ideal for as many people as possible. That Sun in Pisces in generosity with that Jupiter in Aries, and let's go that way. But then there's something of that's sort of the Mercury in Aquarius is wanting to be really logical and analyze all of the facts. And there's a kind of there's a disconnect between those two, the impulse to kind of just go open things up, do this and make things ideal, and then another bit that's kind of wanting to just analyze everything. So I think that's where we're at. But I do think ultimately it's a constructive debate month, much more so than previous, when we've seen some quite gnarly charts last year where things tended to sort of hit brick walls a lot.
And I think we should keep an eye. We think we should keep an eye on this Jupiter Chiron conjunction. It is applying as a conjunction in the full moon chart, so the energy is already coming in. And I don't know how long it lasts. I don't know whether there's a retrograde
until April.
Until April. So so it's a longer transit. And given that we don't have any other sort of outer planet transits going on very strongly at the moment, it's one to watch actually. And there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things to be thinking about. I mean, in the UK, we're having a healthcare crisis in our National Health Service, for example, and that very much should have Jupiter Chiron. And when you get in Aries, for example, Aries wants everything to happen quickly. And when we're talking about having belief and faith, we're having belief and faith, or we want to have belief and faith in miracles, and we want to perhaps have belief and faith in instant miracles. And is that possible? That's just something that came to mind about this conjunction. But I think it's definitely one to watch. I mean, one of the cliches about Chiron is that Chiron is a healing and it's the wounded healer. And I believe that to a certain extent. I think it's about a lot more than that. There's a maverick element, or Rod, you know a lot about Chiron. You studied and spoken a lot about Chiron. There's also a maverick energy to Chiron. Chiron is very civilized. When you think about the centaurs were wild, but Chiron civilized. He was a mentor, a teacher, a healer. He taught battle combat even. Very interesting character. So yes, we shall see. We shall see. It's one to watch. I can't really do any prediction on it, to be honest with you. I'm not sure, but I can see some of the symbolism.
Well, we've made a few sort of broader. Yeah, we've made a few broader predictions, I think, and I think that's all we have a remit to do. Seeing as we're speaking about global transits, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, we must say exactly what's going to happen.
On
what day. Be accountable. Be accountable for what we say.
That's the ideal role for astrologer.
Like the old astrologers to the kings in the court. They had to be accountable, and it was up to the red if you got it wrong. Right?
Yeah,
which is very Aries.
Very much so. Very much so.
Wow.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not. I wasn't born in that time, because I would be so afraid to do astrology.
I know. Maybe you had a past life, Rod. Maybe that's where we all met first time around.
Okay, yeah, that would be fun. I would be happy. That would be nice. So, well, thanks everyone. I mean, today we have so many interesting to talk about from Saturn Neptune sandwich. I really love the idea, because I couldn't stop to imagine that sandwich with a moist fish.
Deli selections that nobody wanted or asked for.
You pick it up and it just crumbles in your hand.
But yeah. So but next month, I think we are prepared. We're going to prepare something about the Saturn in Pisces, and we have prepared everyone for the Pluto moving into the Aquarius. Also, AOAUK, we have the 4 different webinars, but I think for our monthly transit talk, I think we should address a little bit. That would be really nice to help everyone to understand. Next week, as I am just come back to London on the same day, so I will still run a pre-record episode, and I'm planning to talk about the comet, a recent comet. You want to see the comet photo I took?
Oh yes, please.
Should I share it?
Please.
Yeah, I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased to share this photo with everyone. I took this photo 2 days ago on the 1st of February.
Beautiful.
Yeah, from Taiwan. So you can see the beautiful. This is dust tail, and this is iron tail. I'm really happy with that, with this work, but I need more time to process it. But I think this first image is like, I'm so excited. So I will talk about this comet, and as it's visible, but I mean, every time when people talking about visible comet, it's always imagination like a Halley's comet, a huge tail like that. This comet, indeed, when you see it, it's just a light dot. It's just a light dot in the sky, but you can still see it with your naked eye. So it may have impact in the astrology view. So I will discuss about that, and I think our world scope will come back on the I think it's the 17th of February, and then following by the fixed start talk. So well, thanks everyone to join us today about our. Sorry.
Subscribe.
Oh, subscribe! Yes, subscribe.
That's what I'm doing. You want to start doing?
What? Okay, yes, subscribe, because we are nearly close to the 1,000 subscription. We're pretty close to the. Yeah, exactly. We are. Today when I click it, 960. Help us. So nice.
Now, what I've heard a lot of people saying recently on YouTube, do subscribe because it helps the algorithm. Well, I don't know who the algorithm is or why they need help, but obviously they need some help.
They need help, so help them.
Subscribe.
Please help them.
Because it helps the algorithm, apparently.
And it's not just the upcoming stuff.
Yeah.
It's not just the upcoming stuff. There's loads of fantastic videos on there. You've done a whole series on the fixed stars with Christian
Yeah.
Koenig. You do the 10-minute astrologies for beginners with
Yes.
Alia Lopez, and loads of other brilliant stuff. The World Scope as well, which is fantastic. There's some
And we
brilliant stuff
also
on there,
have
really.
we also really dig in because we have that's a Mercury conjunct Pluto. Dig in because there's a lot of amazing video. We talk about a whole lot of things. So go to check the video and you will like it. Please subscribe because we are going to help the algorithm. They need help. That's what I can say
The algorithms need you.
Yeah. The
So
algorithm needs
thanks
you.
everyone. Oh, I was jump. Sorry because someone just opened the door.
Oh.
Okay. Then I've been reminded to say quiet. Okay, so I was so excited. So thanks everyone for watching the AOA UK podcast, and I will see you next week. Bye. Stop recording. Wait a minute. Oh, he's here.